But let's bring you a couple of stories involving the controversial topic of schools and children who change their gender identity. So Rishi Sunak is bringing in a new policy that means that schools will be forced to tell parents if students are questioning their gender under new government guidance to be published this week. That's great. The news comes on the day that it emerged that a teacher had branded a 13-year-old girl despicable because she refused to accept that a classmate identified as a cat. Here is the fallout from that incident. We've got some leaked audio for you.
How dare you? You just really upset someone. Saying things like should be in an asylum.
I didn't say that. I just said if they want to identify as a cow or something, then they're like genuinely unwell. Yeah, they're crazy.
You were questioning their identity.
I wasn't a question. I was just saying about the gender.
In terms of gender, there are lots of genders. Right. There is transgender. There is agender, people that don't believe they have a gender at all.
Trying a year ago, yeah.
But cisgender is not necessarily the way to be. You were talking about the fact that cisgender is the norm, but you identify with the gender, with the sexual organ that you're born with, or you're with. That's basically what you're saying, which is really despicable.
How? When it's if I called my mum right now, my mum would be sad on my side. If I called my mum, she'd be sad.
Well, that's very sad as well, then.
How is it? Those people agree with that. There's only a small majority of people who actually think that.
And why do you think we have so many problems in the world with homophobia? It's not an opinion that we express in this school. No, it's not. And if you don't like it, you need to go to a different school. So I'm reporting you to you need to have a proper educational conversation about equality, diversity and inclusion, because I'm not having that expressed in my lesson.
A few lessons there. Teachers are clearly, in that case, thick. A pupil was in Year 9 or Year 8 able to outsmart them using basic facts and logic and a genuine thought. There was also, of course, the idea then that kids in schools are being made punishable by detentions, being reported to the head teacher, or actually being told to physically leave the school. They are being forced by people we pay as taxpayers to educate our children to accept the fact that the person sitting over there is a cat. Katie John Went, who's a diversity and inclusion facilitator, joins me now. Thank you very much, Katie. Great to have you on the show. Has the world gone mad?
I think it has, to be honest. I would love to identify as a cat. I have about a dozen of them. I did actually want to point out that my preferred pronouns were per, actually short for person. But it would be great because please don't hurt my feelings by kind of. So I was mocking it, and I can understand the mockery. And I'm a trans person, so I think, that kind of thing has gone too far. I do think it may be actually, I'm not sure of the entirely of the facts, that it may be a private school, it may be a church school, so I don't know whether they're state paid or not. But either way, it's gone too far. But what I really did respect, though, was the actual conversation had by the two pupils with the teacher. And that's the kind of free speech discussion that should be allowed to take place, even in a school. And if that,
but is it free speech, Katie? This is the thing. Is it? Sorry to cut across, but I mean that to me sounded like a child saying, "I don't have to accept what you're telling me, which is that there are X amount of genders and that somebody can be, I don't even know what you'd call it, trans mammal in this case, a cat, right? I don't have to accept that." And the teacher saying, "Well, you do, otherwise you're in loads of trouble."
Yeah, and that's the last 30 seconds of it. The teacher has just gone way out of line there, sending you on like rehabilitation training, and you need to leave the school. That was utterly ridiculous. What a good teacher should have done is embraced the discussion and said, "What do other people think at this point?" And have the actual discussion. There is a word for it, actually. It's called Therianism, which I only learned by meeting someone who identified as a wolf. And I actually found out there is a word for it. Just because there's a word for it doesn't make it necessarily true. And in the same way that you might have people in a class who believe in literal recent creationism and others who believe in evolution, you should be able to have a conversation. People who hold a religious belief that might be different to those that hold sexuality beliefs. We've got to be able to hold a respectful space for these kind of conversations. And that means teachers who aren't scared of having a conversation. And that's where it should have gone, because I think the kids are actually quite good in that.
Right, what's the difference between a child looking at their maths teacher and saying 2 + 2 = 5? and a teacher telling that same child that they have to accept that, this is a completely random name, right, by the way, but like Claire is now a horse.
Because one of the things that is different is that you should be able to teach science as science and beliefs as beliefs. Obviously, someone believing they're a horse is kind of a mythological thing. But at the same time, 2 + 2 = 4. You should be able to teach in maths and there should be no dispute. I think that's why you can, and I can therefore teach and discuss biological sex is biological sex. But then to discuss people's beliefs, everything from the realms of religion to the realms of identity could be discussed in an identity framework, in a philosophy framework, without them having to be taught as fact. When that teacher says at the end, there are explicitly 3 sexes, there are umpteen genders, that's teaching something as fact around which something is only a belief.
Does that not exemplify perfectly that just ordinary teachers are not up to the job of educating children about matters like that? That is, if you're going to do it at all, get in a specialist, because you end up with someone like, I keep using this term, Sandra from the geography department, who gets into a stand-up row with a child about whether or not their mate is a cat. And I don't send my kid to school for that.
Yeah. But who is the specialist? If you bring in the specialist, aren't they going to actually be even stronger on the transgender line? Bring in a discussion. Bring in a panel, bring in a debate. Let's have schools. I mean, the Festival of Ideas actually sponsors and actually encourages annual schools debates. Let's actually get kids talking and discussing and actually engaging with topics.
All right, Katie, thank you very much, as ever. Katie John Went there, diversity and inclusion facilitator, reacting to that ridiculous clip of a teacher having an argument with a kid about a cat.